Welcome back to Public Affairs on Peach. I'm CBS 46 investigative reporter Karen Greer as we continue our month-long examination of Georgia's juvenile justice system. CBS 46 morning anchor Amanda Davis looks at what causes juveniles to commit violent crimes and why teens kill.
Jealousy, rage, resentment, all sensational emotions that lead to senseless crimes, increasingly at the hands of young people. Experts say untreated trauma is at the forefront of why more teens are committing serious crimes. Gwinnett County detectives say 17-year-old Cassandra Biorge killed her grandparents because they'd become too strict.
Not in a million years did I ever think something like this would ever happen. My parents were wonderful, wonderful people. Nobody deserves that.
2 weeks later in Fulton County, 17-year-old DeRonald Wilkerson shot to death over a disagreement. A 19-year-old arrested for pulling the trigger.
I just feel sorry for this mother, her child laying on the ground.
Hi, it's Dr. May returning your call.
Clinical psychologist Dr. Susan May says complex trauma, drugs, mental illness, poverty, even impulse can provoke a teen to kill.
You can also have a lot of kids who have been traumatized and they operate with a high level of anxiety and kind of deal with the world in this kind of self-protective fight stance where almost the best defense is a good offense.
These acts seem unconscionable, but more disturbing is their prevalence in Metro Atlanta juvenile and superior courtrooms. CBS 46 checked and found statistics on violent juvenile crimes are underreported to the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, so it's hard to get a real grasp on the numbers. But as Gwinnett County Senior Juvenile District Attorney Carol Cox says, teens are growing more violent.
In my opinion, they're really more dangerous than your adult offenders because they don't have a sense of boundaries.
In these cases, not only a lack of empathy, but they don't even have the internal cue of fear or embarrassment. They're feeling often very little remorse and guilt.
Dr. May says more early intervention programs are needed for highly vulnerable teens.
A lot of times the social development of our kids is being overlooked, the emotional. So I know you asked, what's the solution? The solution is recognizing where the problems lie.
All right, Amanda, thanks for that. Now, that report gives us a lot to discuss, and we're going to do that right now with Dr. Sherry Blake, another clinical psychologist.
Thank you.
Face that you've probably seen various times on television already before. And Dr. Blake, really, we want to see, where do we draw the line? What factors do you think play the role between a teen actually being violent or being a killer?
You know, kids and people that hurt tend to hurt other people. So, you know, there's no clear-cut line. One of the things with teens, they are very impulsive.
Yeah.
They don't think. There's no they think in black and white. There's no middle ground. So with that, things happen, they get upset, they launch out, and sometimes they kill. And so it's no clear-cut line to say, this is the kid that will kill. We know there are some risk factors. We know trauma. We know abuse, history of abuse, family that has a criminal violence. We know those things exist.
Where does alcohol, drugs, and the internet come in?
Drugs, alcohol, internet, TV. We have so many outlets now that attribute to this. And it used to not be that way, but now we have an abundance of ways. And kids learn from other kids. And one of the things that I have learned in my experience with children, because they're not fully developed socially and emotionally, their judgment is really poor oftentimes. So the anger is just, it's not controlled.
Now, we've actually heard witnesses on the scene of some of these violent crimes say, well, you know, just don't know what happened. The teen just snapped.
Right.
Is that snapped? You know, is that legitimate?
Well, it's legitimate in that they had been snapping all along. It's not that all of a sudden today was the day they decided to kill. A lot of times the crime is related to gang activity, substance abuse, and so it's not that they just snapped. Their impulse control has been a problem all along, and if we look at the history of some of these children, we can go back as early as elementary school. They're fights, they've been kicked out of daycare, they've been kicked out of different things, impulse control. Sometimes they've been diagnosed, sometimes they haven't been diagnosed, but the reality is they have issues, and those issues are real.
I found a lot of that being in the courtroom. A lot of the kids had attention deficit disorders or
Absolutely.
different mental conditions that the courts were picking up on. So that is huge.
It is huge.
All
It
right.
is very huge.
Dr. Sherry, don't go anywhere. We're up against a break. We're going to wrap up our discussion about teens who kill when Public Affairs on Peach returns. We'll be right back.